So you're thinking about moving to Charlotte, North Carolina, but you really want to be surrounded by water, or at least nearby. Well, I've got the town for you on the beautiful western shores of Lake Norman. This enormous lake that sits to the north of Charlotte sits Denver, North Carolina. Denver has a rich history and incredible culture, but is it the right town for you? In this video today, I'm going to be diving into the pros and the cons of this sweet little town so you can decide whether you want to live on the west side of Lake Norman or if you want to stick to the east side. Stay tuned to the very end because there's some very cool unknown elements about Denver that may make it stand out from the crowd. If you're looking for everything Charlotte, North Carolina, the ins, the outs, and everything in between, you've come to the right channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and be the first to know about all of the upcoming changes to the Charlotte area. I'm 𝗖𝘁 𝗨𝘀, your Charlotte, North Carolina real estate expert. And every single day we get calls, texts, emails, Zoom invites from people who are just like you, looking to make the move to the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Well, if that is you, drop down into the description below. All of our contact information is there. Whether you're thinking about making the move in 9 days or 90 days across the world, across the country, or even just across town, we're here to make your move everything you want it to be. So why do people live in Denver, North Carolina? Denver sits to the northwest of Charlotte, and if you take this little route of 16, which is the road right up outside of Charlotte, it'll take you right into Denver. In fact, Route 16 will also take you right all the way up into Hickory and I-40. But while you are driving on 16, for most of that time, you are actually flanking Denver to your east. Denver sits on the west side of Lake Norman. Now, Lake Norman is the largest man-made lake in the southeast. It's absolutely gorgeous, and some of the homes may make your jaw drop. But Denver has a few outliers that actually make it far more favorable than our East Shore neighbors over in Cornelius, Davidson, and Mooresville. And we're going to dive into every single one of them in this video right now. Now, Denver is quite unique. It spans the entire western shore of Lake Norman. Now, that's a lot of lake frontage. And here's the thing, people love Denver because it's quieter and far less expensive than its East Shore neighbors. Now, while Denver does span quite a few square miles, it's one of the smaller towns surrounding Charlotte with only about 2,700 people in its population per census data. Now, that is part of the allure for Denver, that people are more spread out. So you have more space, more land, and you're not bumping into each other, unlike the towns on the eastern shore, such as Cornelius, Davidson, and Mooresville. So why do people want to live in a small town? Well, a lot of it has to do with a small town community. They have festivals such as Denver Days and the Strawberry Fest. There's a ton of farms around, but one of the biggest pulls is the fact that there is far more lake property or lake frontage available in Denver than really any other area in the Lake Norman region. And it's a lot more reachable. What do I mean by reachable? Affordable. Well, we're going to get to that in just a minute. Now, here's one of the negatives about Denver, and it has to do with the population. With under 3,000 people living in the area, you don't have as much when it comes to amenities. Not many restaurants, not a whole lot of shopping or dining. There's just not a lot around. Now, is that a problem? No, not necessarily. There are still some really great little restaurants in town, and it is a small town, but it is quaint. And that's kind of how Denver residents like it. The quaintness, the quiet, the slower pace is exactly why they want to live there. And in fact, this is something that has become a challenge as the town has continued to grow. Now, Denver is growing at a slower pace than many of the other areas around Charlotte, and I think part of that is because of the lack of amenities. Not as many people are moving into the area. One of the biggest things that happened to Denver in a long while, and it was technically in Sherrills Ford, it's right up the road, was they got a Publix. That's right, that was a big thing. They got a Publix just up the road, and that was all the to-do. This is what we're talking about when we say small town. Now, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of availability of grocery stores, and you can still go out to a local restaurant or local shops, but it's not something that you're gonna find in, let's say, Huntersville or Cornelius or some of the other towns on the lake. Most of those other towns on that eastern shore are far more built out and far more popular, especially for those that are commuting into Charlotte on a daily basis. So you do get the shopping and the grocery stores and all of the amenities you could possibly think of, while Denver is a little bit more of a snooze. So keep that in mind before moving there. Now, one of the major pros about Denver, although it is a small town, it has an extremely strong job market. That's right. Unemployment is only at 3.7%, which is well below the national average and actually well below the Charlotte averages in the towns around Charlotte. This speaks volumes. Although it's a small town with a smaller population, there is employment and people are living there and moving there because there is employment. Now, over the next decade, jobs are expected to grow between 39 and 41%, which again is well above the US average. And because there's a lot of land, there's a lot of places where you can build more homes and developments, but also build out areas where you can actually put jobs, such as office parks and manufacturing. There's a lot of opportunity coming to the area, and that's causing a lot of growth. In addition, Charlotte has been a hub for many, many years for large industry, large companies to be moving into the area. The challenge is, as Charlotte land costs continue to increase, these companies are looking for land at a better dollar amount. And where are they going to go? Further outside of Charlotte, but they don't want to go too far, and they also want to stay near easy thoroughfares. So where are they going to go? Places like Denver. There's enough land, the costs make sense, and because there's a growing population, because the population is growing, which we're getting to, you are going to see a stronger and more workforce coming into the area. So all in all, there's going to be major growth over the next decade in the Denver area. Now, one of the cons is Denver is seeing a lot of these growing pains. You've got some people coming in for an increased population. You've got jobs coming in. The challenge is Denver still might be a little too slow for most people. So they're looking outside of Denver or closer into Charlotte to actually live and actually commuting to Denver for work. And we're going to see this happening over and over again, especially as the job market continues to grow and until Denver starts seeing even more amenities coming into the area. Now, I'm going to say this, every small town sees these kind of growing pains, and honestly, Denver is no different. We saw this in Kannapolis. We saw this in Concord. We even saw this down in Monroe. And once there was a major thoroughfare and more business going to Monroe, we saw a major boom in the population. This is going to be exactly what happens to Denver. Now, some are worried that growth in population is going to change that small town feel, and well, they're probably right. That small town feel might go away just a little bit as you see more businesses and people moving into the area. The benefit of this is everyone's going to benefit from the growth. It might speed up just a little bit. You might have to widen the roads out a little bit, but you're going to see that there's still going to be enough small town feel and enough Denver vibe. You're going to get exactly what you're looking for in this area. Now, one of the surprising facts and a major pro for Denver is the median household income. Yes, I know it's a very small town and it's pretty rural. However, a lot of the people that do live in Denver still commute into Charlotte. And in fact, the median household income is about $104,000, which is saying a lot for a small town like this. And here's the other thing. The per capita income is $42,000. Now, where does this come from? Well, what this points to is a lot of white-collar jobs. Now, what that would point to is the financial sector and other businesses which really are honed in on Charlotte. So why is Denver reaping the benefit? Well, a lot of people don't want to live in Charlotte anymore. In fact, we see more and more people moving out of Charlotte than we see people that are living out of Charlotte moving closer into the city. This is because people want a little bit more space and maybe they want to take in a little bit more of the lake life. And that's a lot of what Denver has to offer. So you're going to see a lot of these folks that are moving out of Charlotte still commuting in for work, but they're living potentially on the lake or nearby the lake. And because the cost of living from a home purchase standpoint is so much less expensive than, let's say, Cornelius or Davidson, people are flocking to the Denver area to get their lake life fix. Now, we're going to continue to see an increase in the median household income in Denver, especially as we see more and more companies moving into that area and the job market growing. So let's talk about one of the cons of Denver. If you are moving there for the small town rural feel and way better cost and pricing on your home, well, you might find the right home for you, but when you're looking at the median home price, it sits anywhere between $540 and $570. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing because we need to take into account that we've got beautiful luxury homes on the lake, and we have your usual 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2,000 square foot home in a lot of these beautiful neighborhoods that are being developed. So there's a major gap between the affordable homes and the homes where you're living in luxury. Now, that's one of the benefits of Denver, however, because you get the opportunity to be on the lake and the opportunity to be just off the lake with reasonable pricing. This makes Denver stand out against the rest. So let's compare the pricing of Denver lakefront to lakefront of Cornelius, Davidson, and Huntersville, even Mooresville. This is where you're going to see them separate quite strongly. Now, part of that has to do with amenities and quicker commutes, or even just accessibility to everything. You can usually save somewhere between $200,000 to $400,000 easily on a lakefront property if you're looking in Denver, especially northern in Denver, in that northern area. That is a major swing. Now, there's still, of course, when you're on the lake, you're really not getting on the lake for under $1 million, probably closer to 1.5 these days, of course, depending upon what you're looking for. But the savings on the west coast or the west shoreline versus the eastern shoreline are drastic. So this is why we're seeing more and more people start to hunt down their beautiful lakefront properties on the western side of Lake Norman in Denver. Now, one thing I will note, there are some beautiful communities in Denver as well that are not lakefront but still have proximity. Now, many of these are going to be in that $500,000 to $700,000 range. They might have access to boat docks or boat launches or even your own private boat slip. Now, in addition to that, you can still find properties that are in the mid 4s and low 5s pretty easily. It just depends upon where you are. There are some really beautiful developments that are a little bit farther north in Denver, even some that are a little bit farther south in Denver that have quaint, adorable homes in the 2,000 square foot range. Not everybody wants to live on the lake, and you don't have to, but you can at least have proximity. And that's one of the biggest strengths that Denver offers, especially if you still want proximity to Charlotte. Lake life is what you're looking for when you're in Denver, and people truly do lean into this. Most people that you know are going to own a boat, and it's better to know a friend with a boat than buy a boat yourself. I'm just saying, as a former boat owner, just get friends with boats.
We got 25 grand on the line. Hit it, Zito.
Seriously, boat stands for break out another 1,000. I don't know if you knew that. We know that. We will never own a boat again. Or you can rent a boat at the Freedom Boat Club. There are so many different opportunities in this town to access the lake and have fun. Whether you're jet skiing, boating, or just going out for a kayak or paddleboard, lake life is the epitome of Denver, and people lean into it. Now, another major pro of Denver is the schools. In fact, I have had clients who live in Denver and literally don't want to leave the development. They just wanted a bigger home because of the schools, because they were that great. North Lincoln High School is one of the highly rated high schools in the area, and there is an incredible elementary school in the area as well that honestly, parents just don't want to leave. Another thing that ties in with this is also safety. It is a smaller town, and safety is key for most families. So with the combination of the great academics and the safety factor, Denver is definitely an area that people are looking more and more closely at when relocating to the area from outside of Charlotte, or when moving further outside of Charlotte for more opportunity and better cost of living. Now, here's a doozy. It's a pro, but it's also a con. The proximity to Charlotte and commute. Now, when in Denver, you are actually going to be right along 16. So 16 is the major thoroughfare. It is a major 4-lane highway. It is 65 miles an hour. So you're going to see it's truly like an interstate. It comes right through. It's a bypass between 40 onto 485 and into town. Now, that being said, while it is an easy one, and honestly, there's very little traffic on 16, hardly at all, except when you start to hit 485. There is an intersection as you're coming closer into town, and that's where it starts to bottleneck, right before Mountain Island Lake and then into town. So you don't have a whole lot of traffic until you get closer into Charlotte. Most commute times from Denver, especially in the northern area of Denver, are going to be closer to about 45 minutes. Now, if you've got some heavy traffic, yeah, you could maybe commute for an hour. It just depends upon where you are in Denver. But here's the benefit. You actually are going to have a shorter commute time from Denver than you would coming from Cornelius or Davidson in many instances. Because coming down I-77, which is on the east side of the lake, is far more of a bottleneck. I'm telling you, it'll be a bottleneck from 2 p.m. all the way onward. It is a heavily trafficked road. So on 16, you're moving with just a few slowdowns. And once you hit 485, you can go in either direction and find your way into work regardless of where you're working. So far less of a slowdown, much better proximity, and honestly, you keep moving. And I'm okay with that. As long as I'm moving, I'm happy. It's a beautiful drive. I would do that drive hands down over I-77 any day of the week. But I'll let you make that decision on what you want your commute to be, especially if you still want that lake life and you still want to work and have fun in Charlotte. So I hope you learned a little bit more about Denver and why it is one of the most beautiful and the most accessible towns outside of Charlotte that brings you lake life, great schools, great lifestyle, but also a really reasonable cost of living. If you've got other questions and comments, drop them in the comments below. And if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, be sure to do so right there, right now. Do it. I'm 𝗖𝗁 𝗀𝘁, your Charlotte, North Carolina and South Carolina real estate expert. And every single day we do get calls, texts, emails, Zoom invites from people who are just like you, looking to make the move to the Charlotte, North Carolina area. So if that's you, be sure to drop down into the description below. All of our contact information is there. Whether you're moving in 9 days or 90 days, moving across the world, across the country, or just across town, we're here to make your move exactly what you want it to be. Until next time, I look forward to showing you around town. So you're making the move. There's a lot of videos that you can be watching, like this one right here, or maybe even this one. Really either one of these, but honestly, watch both of them because they're gonna help you make the move. Go ahead, pick one. They're both really good.